it was such a pleasure to actually go back and watch this movie because I don't think I've watched it as many times as I would like to. And I think all in all, I know I have friends, really close friends, whose favorite film in the world is Dead Man's Shoes. And
Amazing.
I think I've seen it about 5 times, and I know someone really close to me who's seen it about 100 times probably. How does that
Yeah.
make you feel knowing that this
It
movie
feels,
means so much to some people?
yeah, it feels great. Listen, it means the same to me. So I'm in their camp. But it is a great film. That's the truth. And I'd love to take all the glory and be like, it's me. But
Mhm.
it's not. It's Paddy and it's all the fellas who did such wonderful work and Joe and Emily, everyone was just brilliant all the way through. And Shane was brilliant with all of us all the way through. And Danny was brilliant when he was, so everyone who made that film was just having an excellent time and it made a great film, luckily.
Yeah. What memories do you have of it? Because it's quite a long time ago and you were really young. It was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
coming up to 22 years. And what was it like? What do you remember from actually making the movie?
Well, I mean, so many different things and personal things, but things that, I remember I was gonna be doing this role and I was gonna be doing this thing and I filmed a little bit with Paddy and then I didn't film anything else and I was like, oh, maybe that was it. But I was staying with Shane and every day he would come back. He was like, man, do you want to watch the dailies? And so I was kind of getting a bit, I can't claim at all I've got an education, but I was getting a little bit, a smidgen of an education about directing, at least the way Shane did it. And it was old film, so we were getting dailies. So it wasn't what he'd shot that day, it was what he'd shot 2 days ago, and there were rushes and they were coming back and forth. And I remember sitting there with Griff the first and Lisa Pooh, as we called her for some reason, very sweet, and Shane and Louise's wife at the time, and watching, and I was just like, what is he gonna do with that? What is he gonna do? And I remember him taking notes and going, oh. No, man, oh, okay, so I need him, okay. And I could see him plotting out the story because it was improv, that was the thing.
Yeah,
There
yeah, yeah.
wasn't a script, and that works very differently. But I remember just sitting there with him and thinking, well, he knows what he's doing. So surely I'm sitting here for some reason. He just sent me home. And
Mhm.
he kept saying that. He was like, Tobes, you'll be in tomorrow. Or maybe not tomorrow, but maybe Friday. We'll figure it out. But we're just trying to figure out like what we need of you. And it was very nice, man. He was working out all this, this story. And I remember him calling and saying, I'm going to do a reshoot. And I was like, oh man, I can't even remember what I did. Like, how would we do that? And he said, no, it's not with you. It's with Paddy. I'm going to change the ending. And I remember feeling like nervous for Paddy, being like, oh man, that's a lot of pressure. Because it was my first film. I had no clue.
Yeah, I was going
Paddy
to
had it,
ask
and he did
you.
a brilliant ending,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those are my memories. It was my very first film.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's what I was going to ask you. You hadn't
Great.
been anything before that. So you made everything you learned about film then was learned through doing this movie. Have you found that that's helped you along the way? Because both you and Paddy have gone on to have these really extraordinary careers and being in big Hollywood movies. Do you think starting your career with the Shane Meadows movie prepared you for like what's gonna come in the future?
Do you know what? I don't know if it prepared me, but it spoiled me. I think I would go back and work with Shane on everything. I watch things that other people are in, and I'm like, why did he get the role? Oh, I can't believe Shane didn't call me for that. So, in a way, I was spoiled. But yeah, there's obviously a huge amount of education I got specifically, from working with Paddy and working with Shane, working with everyone, But even Gary, I went on and worked with Gary Stretch, who did a brilliant job of Sonny. And I remember Gary giving me such a lovely compliment, and all the lads actually, when they said they've got the scene, the drug scene.
Yeah.
Paddy's poisoned the tea. And at the time, I couldn't really hear the compliment. And I recognize it now as a compliment. But at the time, Paddy said, he said, oh man, I can let go. I can be really vulnerable in that scene. And when you watch it, you realize, man, he did great. And he said, I did that because of what you had done. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks, man. Like, what are you talking about? But he was, I recognize the compliment now that he allowed himself to be that vulnerable and that open
Mm.
purely because it had already happened. And, they'd had that feeling for me. So, yeah, it was just such a lovely experience. I think I've always sought out that thing. I haven't necessarily been great at choosing the blockbuster hits,
Mm.
but I have always chosen things that speak to me. And I think that's the education I got. And whether I'm the biggest star on earth or not doesn't really have I'm not concerned about that. I'm always concerned about, oh, can I do that really, really well? And I think that's what set me up.
I just
Uh,
want to go back to the role itself because obviously it can be really tricky playing someone with learning disabilities.
yeah,
And I think you did it absolutely beautifully by not sort of following that kind of like, caricaturical way in
right.
which those people are sometimes
Yeah.
portrayed. Was it important for you? And were you at all aware that you might not get this right at all?
Yeah, it was very important to me, and I was deeply aware I might not get it right. And, I had a very lovely mum who gives a lot of her spare time to the Blind Society and, Marie Curie and what was formerly, just for people with disabilities. And I remember we used to have to take our Easter eggs, we get Easter eggs, and we'd have to take them down and give them away. And I cursed it at the time. I was like, oh, what's happening? I want my chocolate. But it only takes 10 minutes of being there for you to really sober up and realize how fortunate you are just to be able to walk around and understand the question. And what I loved about going down to those things was how genuine everybody's reactions and interactions were, you know. And it's very difficult, and the carers are magical people. So for me, I felt very safe there. I felt very comfortable around people who were severely disabled. But what I always noticed was it was genuine. If they thought you didn't like them, they'd say it and you'd be like, oh no, that hadn't crossed my mind. Yeah, I thought you didn't like me. And you just think, oh, that's magic. And I did find a person on a train that I'd remembered always the mannerism he'd done, which I'd never seen down a facility that my mum had taken me to, or my aunt. And so I used that as kind of a crux of I'll come from there and do the rest of it. But yeah, I'd kind of had an education I hadn't realized about, it was just about being genuine, and so I'd spend a fair amount of time before, and I guess method actors now would go and do that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'd just been forced to do it by my genuinely sweet mother. So yeah, it was very important because I wasn't always a fan of how it was portrayed. And of
Yeah.
course, there's been beautiful portrayals before mine, but yeah, it was important to me.
Another aspect of the movie that I really, really love, it is a serious movie. It is a very violent movie. It is obviously a revenge movie and a little bit of action, but it's also a very funny movie. The dialogue is quotable endlessly. What was
Endlessly.
it like? Sort of, did you know when you were making the movie that those kind of like the lines were going to be sort of, forever quoted
Well,
at you?
no, I didn't. Well, I was loving it in a different way, but I remember watching the dailies, the rushes of when they shoot Al, and Shane was so irritated that that was all he got on the day. He was like, "Oh man," he said, "Oh man, we shot this thing and this blood, it didn't come out, and it just, oh man, maybe we'll have to figure out. There's this thing called CGI. Maybe we'll get like blood and it'll be like an explosion because it just doesn't look right." But then when he got the rushes, when we were watching, I went, "That looked mint." That looked dead real. But what was actually happening was when they drove off and they couldn't get out of first gear, we were crying in the room watching the rushes. I remember sitting with Shane, and Shane's got a brilliant laugh, like rolls in his giggle. He's like, and we were laughing at, and I thought, man, that surely can't work. You just murdered a guy. You can't, you can't then have him drive off in first gear and laugh and have him go, "You shot Al! You shot Al!" And it worked great. it worked great. And then when he asked them, hey, we're going to go to the garage and we're going to stand there. You've run out of get the car's ruined. What are you going to do? And what they came up with was just lovely. And Gary's sort of peaceful, stoic stillness, and everyone sort of copying that and enjoying it. It's just, and then the tears. And, no, I'm going. I just thought, man, how are they coming up with this? It's brilliant. So I was inspired as I watched it all, but I thought you can't have murder followed by comedy. But that changed. It was brilliant. It
Yes,
was
you can.
brilliant. I mean, the most shocking one I always thought was the one in the toilet.
Mm,
That was terrifying. And I
yeah.
remember on the original DVD, that was kind of the, play and extras. It was like, and it was just him on the toilet. And I was like, yeah. But
Mm.
yeah, it's brilliant. That's
I'm, I'm- as I said, I really like the dialogue, but also what I really love about this movie is that it's so short and it's you don't. I mean, we live in a world where a,
tell us
a,
everything.
a movie is regarded to be important or interesting if it's over 2 hours long. And I think we've kind of lost the art of making really short movies to the point.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, do you think the same way, or does it make a difference how long a movie you're in is?
No, I agree with you fully. I think what I love about it is that's often a thing that leaves me wanting more. It's a bit of the Faulty Towers kind of deal, isn't it? I wish there was a million more Faulty Towers, and I'm glad there aren't. So it's that kind of thing. And yeah, I think Shane had felt like he'd told the tale. He didn't want to labor it too much. And I remember him saying that because my role specifically was one that could get quite self-indulgent, if I'd let it, or if Shane had let it. So I remember even on the tire scene, the reason we did 4 takes, I think, was because I kept cracking up because Shane's giggles, first of all, infectious, but also Paddy's. And Paddy kept doing something about, that who's that little boy who showed his ass, which is great in the scene. But he kept like throwing things in like Mars Bar Motorway, and I don't, I'm young at the time, and I'm trying to do a professional performance. So yeah, even the takes were short. Like we'd walk around the car and we'd inspect the car, and he'd go, "Great, guy, wicked. Let's move on." And I'd be like, "Oh man, that's not what I've heard films like. Don't they have to do 3 takes?" And he must not be liking it. I was like, "He's being kind. At least he's being kind and going, let's move on because this kid's terrible." Because half the time, I'm glad it came across the way it did, but half the time I was like, "Man, I don't know if that's right." Talking about the hair. And Paddy said, "Well, you're going to grow it like John Bon Jovi." And just my whole memory of that scene is trying not to laugh, not the tire scene, trying not to laugh. But everyone's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful and gentle." I wish I could claim I was a genius actor, but it was probably just me trying not to laugh. It's all that was going on. That was all that was happening. So, I think those are my fond memories. And Shane was quick anyway. And it was film. I think film allowed you to be quick. You don't want to waste it. There was this precious thing you couldn't waste. And you don't want to get 53 hours of dailies back.
Mm.
I think you're right. I don't think it has. Some films have to be long.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
Sure.
I recently watched The Odyssey, and The Odyssey's almost 3 hours long, and it was worth it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it had to be 3 hours long, and it
Yeah.
didn't really feel it. So, another thing, have you how has your relationship with both Shane and Paddy and everyone else really that's worked with Shane for so many years? Have you kept in touch with all these people? Do you feel like part of a family having made this movie and work together, throughout the
I'm,
years?
I'm sad to say I haven't, but I do feel like a family. If that sounds bizarre, I understand, but I do feel like a special family that's worked with Shane. But no, Shane's also intensely private. And, you're not going to catch him down the pub necessarily in a common, so when I run into Shane, it's like I saw him yesterday. And I think those are great friendships. Um, but it's rare that I get to do that. So no, no, and I wish I did, but also at the same time, Shane's aware that actors are annoying, and he probably doesn't want people go, Shane, I could do that. I could play him. He's like, he's £810. You can't play him, so I think that's part of it. You get this like special moment, and that's very much Shane. I don't feel woe is me for not having supper at his house. But there was a period after the film, while it was coming out, where I was also kind of being life coached a bit by Shane. You
Mm.
know, he was like, "Ah, that's an unusual reaction to that, mate. I think, you could look at that with therapy." And I'm like, therapy's not for me. So really I did. I got looked after by Shane in a little bit, like a great big brother. So yeah, he's probably remembers me as a young man who, you know, is a bit immature and goofy. So yeah, when we've seen each other, we've had a great time. Last time I saw him, we had a Mexican meal, and I was with my brother Dom, and we could not stop laughing. Shane was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Come on, Shane, you're hilarious." I'm crying, laughing it. Pretends like he doesn't get it. What are you laughing at? It's like, come on.
Oh, he must be very proud of you, of the career you've gone on to have,
I hope so, but at the
and
same time, Shane would say, "I hope you're proud of yourself," which is actually far more functional and lovely to hear. And I am. I'm very proud, that I managed to not just be in a Shane Meadows film and let that be that, you
yeah.
know.
You've been in some, as I say, some absolutely massive productions
Yeah.
throughout the years, especially more recently. What have been your like favorite things that you've been in the last, let's say 10, 15 years?
I mean, some of my more recent favorites. I mean, I loved the first season of The Servant and Lauren
Oh,
and
I loved that.
Nell and Rupert. I mean, I had a blast. I was absolutely enjoying every single bit of that.
Mm.
Um, I just did a film called I Play Rocky.
Oh, yes.
Where we're at in the world, we're making movies about movies, but it was 50 years ago. So shockingly,
Mm.
I believe I probably am going to get told off for saying anything. I think November is when it's coming out. Anyway, moving on. I can't get
No,
told.
I think it's being played. I think the trailers are being played everywhere
Yeah,
in
trailers are
America.
starting. There
Yeah.
was a trailer at the beginning of the Odyssey that everyone texted me about. So I'm assuming it's coming out at some point. And I had a ball on though. I had a blast. I had such a good time. And by the way, I should be plugging my own stuff, but Anthony Ippolito, who plays Stallone, is knockout, man. He is exceptional. He is honestly so good. I know it's not Dead Man's Shoes, but I'm telling you, he is. Yeah, if that was my like first feature, I know he's been in other stuff, but man, he absolutely got it so right. He should win an Oscar. If We Will Rock You and all those others get it for, biopics, man, he nails it. It's phenomenal. Anyway, so that's to look forward to for everyone else. And I had a ball doing it. But I also love doing Planet of the Apes. I
No,
loved it.
I love the
I loved
Skull
them.
Island.
Jane
Were you in
Coburn was
Skull
brilliant.
Island?
Kong Skull
No.
Island was
Yeah,
tremendous.
I think that is a fantastic plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And massive productions, but those are productions. And the reason I say them is they felt like being on Shane's film. It was fun to be around the people. Everyone was on top form and enjoying it and working hard, no doubt. But yeah, I just had a thoroughly good time on those, you know. So yeah, yeah.
Well,
All the way.
congratulations on this, and it was so lovely to revisit such a fabulous movie. I really, really love this movie,
Yeah,
and
thank you. And I'm excited it comes out on DVD because that also has got the short on it, Northern Soul, that I made with Shane afterwards, which was
yeah,
great, which was my impression of Mark Herbert, the producer. That's where I got the
yeah.
voice from. So yeah, it was great.
So that's brilliant. We look forward to that coming out soon. And again, congratulations on
Thank you.
your career, and we look forward to watching the Rocky movie
Thank you.
that's
Thank you. I
coming
may
out
we, I'll
soon.
be talking to you about that in a few weeks.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys!
Hey!